finance person. The one who just left was the HR person. But there is a story to my story. My doctoral thesis was in HR. Surprise, surprise. After reading and crunching all the arithmetic and the mathematics, I said there was one thing I did not understand. This was how to manage people. Won't believe it, how much it has helped me to navigate where I am currently. One of the units was in office politics. And every single day, I read more and more journals on that. I was shocked at things I had been seeing in which I did not understand and which are all part of life. It's in that what the speaker just told us. Paul just told us about the office politics and how you must navigate them to survive. Who knows what I do? Anybody who knows what I do? The story you had was just my story. Building trust. And this time, I wasn't building trust in an organization. I was building trust in a country. Yes, the citizens must trust me and must trust what I say. So in this presentation, which is going to be closely related, by the way, and we had no meeting with Paul, it's about reimagining financial management. And the first thing I did, I confess, was to find out what is reimagining. These people now are taking me off the track. And I found out that when we reimagine, we compare what we usually know about something vis-a-vis the real thing. You know, what really happens. Again, like we have been told, that sometimes what you see is not what you get. So when we reimagine financial management, we must ask ourselves, are we just managing finances, or are we stewarding Kenya's future, which is really the challenge that we have? And the core message here is that good financial stewardship is a shared civic and corporate commitment, not the governments alone. Because we are always asking, hii serikali inatufanyia nini? What have you done for that serikali? Please ask yourself. And I know many of you are in the private sector. You are in the banks. Although sometimes I don't know whether KCB is in the government or outside the government. What have you done for that government? We'll be looking at funneling from the world to Africa and to Kenya to see examples of what we can do going forward. And I begin by asking you in this room, the women on boards, potential women on boards, and ex-women on boards, what am I asking of you, even before I dive into my presentation? One, we ask ourselves how we shall anchor board work in outcomes. Yeah? Not just compliance. I know there is that compliance. We must meet 4 times a year. Simi nilienda. Yes. What did you do when you went to that board meeting? Yeah? The second thing I'll be asking of you is how to champion gender responsive budgeting within your institutions. This is a must. Thirdly, is to bridge the public-private divide in financial governance. You will hear people saying, mimi ni mtu wa private sector. Hii maneno nasikia ya corruption. Corruption inakuwa kwa serikali. Kwani serikali inafanya biashara na yenyewe? Who are those who do business with the government? Private sector, thank you. Who gives the bribes to the government? Private sector, thank you. So we are saying we must bridge the divide in financial governance. We must stop blaming each other and instead point to ourselves and say, what is it that I have done that is contributing to the mess that we are in? And before we finish, we must also make a decision to mentor the next person. As board members, as potential board members, you are always better than somebody else. Can you hold their hand so that they can come to your level and even pass you ultimately? So, again, as we move on, if we can go to the next slide, I wanted us to understand how we can move from being managers to being stewards. And again, the last presentation put it very well. In fact, I remember one of the slides that Paul showed telling us that banking is about procedures. I remember it very well. It's about systems and about keeping books in order. Sindio? Yeah, you can, everything is well managed. However, stewardship carries an obligation to those who come after us and to the public trust. And when I looked at what Paul was saying, I said, somebody might think we sat and agreed on this. Stewardship is management with a conscience and a long view. Not just what you are doing today. Stewardship is about saying, how does what I am doing today affect the people tomorrow? How does what I borrow today affect the generation that is coming tomorrow? So I invite you to this shared reflection. And this shared reflection, sorry, you know how sometimes technology. We have this shared reflection that public servants and the private sector must together lead to move forward. So we have now the model under pressure. We are moving from the whole world, and then we'll shrink. We will see how what happens out there comes together when we look at our own country here. Now, when we look at the old model, we used to focus on rules, staying within the approved lines. But today, when we look at AI, when we look at what has happened, we find that just staying between those lines is not enough. Think of the time we had COVID. Think of the kind of climate that we are seeing these days. I'm sure if we go to Marsabit, maybe not Marsabit, but those other counties beyond Marsabit, what are we seeing? Sometimes people are being washed away with floods. Sometimes it is so dry, it is cracking like this carpet that I see down here. Budgets are still being written for the world as it was, but that cannot work anymore. And we know that Kenya here has lived its own version. We have seen the world changing right in front of us. Now, I want to give you a few examples from the world. There is a cyclone that happened in Mozambique in 2019. During this there were damages from that flood alone of $3.3 billion. Yeah, across all the countries that were involved. They experienced $1 billion worth of infrastructure damage. Roads were gone, bridges were washed away, name it, and it was gone. 400,000 people were displaced in Mozambique, and they all required emergency funds. Post-disaster, they required $3.2 billion. Yeah? Let's just say they required a lot of money. Let's not even mention the figures. So what is this telling us, ladies and gentlemen? That a new global standard is emerging. The IMF, the World Bank, the OECD frameworks now orient towards outcomes, not just compliance. So you can imagine if the people in Mozambique had a very good budget, and I'm sure they had, what do you think these things that happened did to them? How would they get out of that mess? So, the lesson we are getting here, and I don't want to impose it on you because you have to look at that and understand the lesson, that financial management is shifting towards intergenerational responsibility and public trust. And this is about asking ourselves, is there something we can do today that can prevent that disaster tomorrow? Is there something we can do about the way we are spending our monies today, about the way we are borrowing, that will impact the generations coming? And then there is the ESG. This is no longer a corporate relations exercise like CSR. Who knows what ESG is all about? We have accountants in the house. The environmental, social, and governance. It's about the non-financial factors, about environmental stewardship, about social responsibility, and governance quality. That investors, regardless of what they do, regulators have to assess an organization's sustainability, ethical impact, and long-term risk. So what we are saying is that we must do more than just comply. When we come to Africa's climate, which is a fiscal challenge, we find that 17 out of 20 countries are threatened by climate change alone. 2 to 9% of national budgets across the continent are already affected by climate change. 7 out of 10 countries are most at risk from climate disaster risk in Africa. And adaptive capacity gaps deepen the food insecurity and declining income. So slowly, I'm bringing you to Kenya. Let us look at Rwanda, and we'll design this for context. So Rwanda is that country that built one of the most transparent and effective public financial management systems in Africa. We give them credit for that. In December 2022, the first African nation to access the IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Facility was Rwanda. $319 million was secured to support climate-related reforms, and climate considerations were integrated directly into the budget planning, the fiscal risk, and investment decisions. So this is an example of a country that has risen to the occasion. And this is all about now reimagining. So let's zoom into Kenya now and say, where are we? If we have to have an honest and hopeful assessment, let us look about the foundations that we have built. We know that we have our financial law, the PFM Act, and this is a solid legislative framework. Actually, our PFM is one of the best that you can find across the world. We have the IFMIS. This is the system that manages finances. It has brought feasibility and public expenditure that did not exist before. Devolution, our counties. This has moved financial decision making closer to the communities that it serves. Really, that was the intention of creating the counties, that services could come closer to Mama Mboga, right where she is. Then there are the real achievements. The work of many committed people across government and civil society. All those are positives. And all those are good. But what is the unfinished work? And from where I sit, let us look at this unfinished work. Our budget absorption. This is what I report. Come rain, come shine. Every quarter, I tell you about how much you have spent vis-a-vis the budget that we gave you. In my latest report, counties spent just 31% of their Kenya shillings, 234.3 billion development budget. That is the first 9 months of the year. With 43 out of 47 counties below the 50% mark. Don't you all come from some county somewhere? Are you happy with that? Only 31%. And that was third quarter. Right now I'm doing the fourth quarter and you will soon know what they did for the whole year. Our revenues have not been doing well. Our revenue base has been poor, and there is actually a lot of cheating when it comes to taxes. Without giving details, debt. What have we done with our debt? In spite of our good laws, as of the third quarter, our debt was already at 12.82 trillion. And this is a whole 69.9% of GDP as of March. Debt service was at 1.35 trillion, consuming nearly half of all the revenue. And this is all the revenue. If we talk only of domestic revenue, we are talking of 70%. A shilling on debt is a shilling not spent on a child's education. Don't you agree? Yes. Because if we are just spending on repaying debt, what does that tell us? Gender. I remember there is a time that we were told Parliament was to be dissolved. Because of what? Gender. We did not have at least 1/3 of women in Parliament. And it has remained a sore question. So if that is where we are, and those are very, very few examples, how can we move from compliance to outcomes? How can we move from a perfect PFM, a perfect IFMIS, which tell us exactly what to do. Our budgets, well prepared, but which are never spent as is expected. How do we move from just compliance to getting outcomes? And this is really what reimagining finances is all about. So, how do we become accountable? It's not just about how the money moves, it's about what it achieves. It's not enough just to prepare beautiful financial statements. You have to ask yourself, what is it that you did towards the outcomes that you planned to, achieve? So you must link every budget to a measurable human result with milestones and public reporting. Do not just show beautiful, beautiful statements, but no achievables. So if we have to do that, then we must look at the ways in which we can become more achievable. And I wanted just to give one example. How do we link budget and what is achievable? For instance, we are told that school meals budget tripled since 2018. Not because more meals were served. We are saying that if the learners were getting meals, then we should be seeing another more tangible result from that. So if the children are getting lunch, what is the outcome? What would be the outcome? We expect that more children will be coming to school, will stay in school, and therefore, even the transition rates will improve. Not to mention that a child who has eaten well will think better. So here, we can link the spending to outcomes in very, very few words. So, let us also look at how this can be done. And again, I borrow from the previous presentation about having digital tools for transparent accountability. How can we use AI, for instance? I know that is something you have already been through. For instance, we can have a shared, publicly accessible fiscal dashboard. Yeah? Across every ministry, across every county. Who comes from Muranga here? Anybody from Muranga? Hakuna? What a shame. You only got Olkalau there is. I'm using Muranga because they have these dashboards. You go to the governor's office and he can tell you, how many parkings are occupied in town. He can tell you which hospital has long queues. So these are the kind of things that we are talking about that will produce real outcomes. Yeah? How about early warning systems that can flag emerging risks before they become crises? So why do we say every year that we have a drought emergency? Huh? What has happened to the predictive powers of AI? Why are we not able to predict at least that in 6 months we are going to have El Nino? But I think we are almost there, aren't we? These days, when I'm planning to play golf somewhere, I go to the weather. There is something called AccuWeather on my phone. And I want to see whether it will rain at 3 o'clock when I'll be on hole number 7. Yeah? So it's possible. What we are saying is then we must mobilize. We must bring these early warning systems into our AI so that they are able to tell us, yeah, what is about to happen. We can't keep saying that it is an emergency all the time. Granted that it's an emergency, but we can better prepare for them. The other thing to do is about policy simulation tools that model the impact of choices before committing resources. Ladies and gentlemen, policy simulation. How do we borrow? How do we even make the decision that we need to borrow now? Don't we have the data? Don't we have what we did last year and the other year? How is it that we don't use that data to make informed choices so that whatever we are doing when committing resources is informed by the data that we already have? If we had then this collective will and strong board level oversight, yeah, we are likely to arrive at that. So if we move forward, and now I'm zooming in because now we are in Kenya. How else then, in terms of reimagining financial management, can we do better than we are doing now? First, integrating public and private stewardship. And this is something I mentioned because I said we are in this together. The private and the public are in this together. And you all agreed with me. So how do we break down the silos between the public financial management and the private sector? Because we should do that. There are still walls in perception, walls in understanding, walls in the way that we think about each other. So whenever you see this person who works for government, they look like strange animals, you know? They're like, hey, huyu ni mtu wa gava. That's what you hear them saying. Huyu mtu wa gava, you need to get close to them and understand what is it that drives them and how is it that we can work together to come out of this. Look, for instance, at the diaspora remittances, the pension savings, private infrastructure appetite. All these things mean that the private sector is working with the public sector. We have blended finance vehicles, risk-sharing mechanisms, transparency, regulatory frameworks, and most of all, one shared national purpose across different institutions. If we were to do that, ladies and gentlemen, we should be moving towards building resilience for an uncertain future. And now I want us to start thinking outside the box. Because if the future is uncertain, how do we think outside the box to harness what we know, to prepare ourselves for what is not known? How do we mitigate these risks? And I can see that if we capitalize emergency and disaster response funds in good years, then we are likely to be more prepared when the disasters actually come. And I have an example of this. Usually when I'm approving funds, ministries will come to me and tell me, oh, we need this money for drought response. I'm telling them, listen, but it is raining heavily. Why do you need drought money? And they tell me, no, you know the donor gave this money for drought response. So it doesn't matter whether it's raining or not. Just give us the money. Yes, they insist and they take the money. And that time it is raining. So what do you think happens when the drought comes? The money is long spent. It is not there. They spent it during the rain, and because there was no drought, they spent it on other things. Yeah? So, or like the story of a child who used to look after goats. I think that was in Marsabit. And every time when he got bored, he would say, hyena, hyena, nyang'au, 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 iko hapa. And people would go running to save him. So it was just a joke to entertain himself. Yeah. But one day, the real hyena visited him and he tried crying, nyang'au, nyang'au, hakuna. Fisi, ile fisi yenye tulisikia. Fisi akaja na alimkula. By the time the people got there, it was only a few bones left. The boy had been eaten up. This is what we have been doing with our practices. Let us integrate climate fiscal risk into budget preparation as a standard practice, not as a joke. Let us manage debt in a way that preserves our ability to respond to the unexpected. Yeah? So this, indeed, is the most responsible thing that we can do for coming generations. In terms of the gender responsive budgeting, I mentioned it is not a concession to an interest group. It is a commitment to the completeness of our accountability. I have been hearing lately that we have concentrated on the girl child to the detriment of who? Boy child. Many of you are moms here, if not all, and dads. There are dads here. What is it we have been doing? It doesn't mean that when you are gender responsive, you only look after the girls. Does it? We also have to look after the boys. Yes. So being gender responsive means that we must look at both sides. Ask, and this is an important question, how does every resource decision affect women, men, girls, and boys differently? This is really the question. So if it is what you are doing within your family, just check how it is impacting all of them, not just one side. Kenya has the policy framework, but we need champions. And those champions are in this room today. So what does it mean in practice then to do what we have just gone through? And this is where it boils down now to the boards. That ladies, take your place in the finance and audit committees. Are you in the finance and audit committees, or you are only in HR? Who's in the finance committee? I see one there. Audit committee. Yes, there are a number. Now, that is where the stewardship decisions are made. Yeah? So we need more. And I'll soon be free. I have declared I have an interest. In about 12 months, I'm going to be free and available. Join the finance committees. Mentor and open doors. Yeah? Here I'm speaking to county finance officers, internal auditors, yeah, finance students, all of them, and you, the board members. Ask consistently, what were the actual results? What does this audit tell us beyond the numbers? Read between the lines. Don't just say, yes, clean audit report. Yeah, but what did the money do? The fact that the figures are arranged neatly does not mean that the outcomes have been achieved. Please ask the questions beyond what we have usually been asking. Bring your lived experience and how financial decisions land in real communities. So we need more from you. Whatever it is that you are doing, we need you to ask more questions. We need you to determine what the outcomes are. And we are being told that when women lead at the financial governance table, institutions become more accountable and more resilient. And there is research to that effect. Ask Nkirote, she will tell you. She told me that many years ago when she taught me how to be a board member. Yeah? Now, a bit of my office, and I'm sure you'll be having a few questions asking, what is it that I do? And in terms of contributing to the topic today, my office has participated in deepening program-based budgeting across national and county governments. Did timely reporting on the whole of government spending is meant to inform anybody who would like to analyze these reports. We have had bodies like UNICEF, bodies like UN Women, then take the figures that we report and they can measure the impact of spending on some of these things. Program-based budgeting, of course, is about linking budgets to the outcomes. We also handle investing in real-time expenditure monitoring with the National Treasury. As I report on a quarterly basis, I just showed you what we are doing on public debt, and it is not just public debt. We report on all aspects of spending. You may have seen state departments that overspend, those who travel excessively. So all these details are there, and we monitor them on a running basis. We support the independence of audit functions across government. I work closely with the Auditor General, and in fact, my office is the repository of all government information, and we help in this. We also are involved in integrating climate financial risk into budget processes as a standard consideration. And as well, we do comprehensive gender budgeting statements, which is open to public scrutiny. So as I move towards finishing, I want us all in this room to reimagine. And when we reimagine financial management, I did start by telling you that it is about stewarding well. We do this by leading with integrity, and we all know that the opportunity is here, and so are you, because you are alive and present in this room as I finish this presentation today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what I had for us. Thank you.